All righty. L'chaim, v'livracham, to life and to blessings. We have learned about the makeup of who we are. I'm going to go through 10 words, and if you want to write them down, you will have the first 10 chapters in one word. Chapter 1, souls. Chapter 2, a portion, a part of God, the divine soul. Chapter 3, 10. The soul is made up of 10 components. Chapter 4, garments. The self-expression of the soul, garments, thought, speech, and action. Chapter 5, food. Study of Torah is unique in the connection. It's like food. Chapter 6 begins the animal soul, leumas, the opposite. Just as you have in holiness, you have in the opposite in the opposite of holiness. Chapter 7, klipas, speaking about the various klipa, shell that covers over the divine. And then chapter 8, osur, that which is prohibited, that which cannot be elevated, which the soul cannot elevate because it is tethered to the extraneous negative forces of the world. And chapter 9, milchama, battle. Life's a battle. And chapter 10, tzaddik, righteous. And that's where we are. What's unique about what's unique about the righteous?
And later, always darkness inside him.
So yes. So, but that's a there's two different types, so we'll see in a moment. Yeah, I'm correct. But the tzaddik means someone who finished the battle. Right? They conquered the animal soul. Either they've subdued it or they've transformed it. Right? So, welcome to Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zechri Kadesh in Montreal, Canada, where it's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Excuse me. So there are two types of righteous: incomplete and complete. So the incomplete righteous individual, as we explained yesterday, is someone who doesn't have an absolute complete love of God, to delight in God, because God is God, not from what you get from God, but to delight in God. And as we explained, and we had some challenges and difficulties with it, and I get that it's not so simple, but love also means hate. You hate that which is the antithesis of the love. So anything that's not connected to God, you hate. That doesn't mean you hate a person because they pig out, right? Even if they ate a pig, which is not kosher, right? You don't hate them. You hate the idea of someone doing such a thing because it's not connected to God, right? That action. Or you hate the words of someone. Now, that doesn't mean you express it to somebody, your hate. That's not what it means. The righteous isn't condemning, going around condemning. No, there's no condemning. It's the feeling inside of you that this is like, you know, the antithesis of godliness. And therefore, right, you hate that. And what do you love? Godliness. So that's very important. It doesn't, sounds like this, person's going to go around and like, hating on people because, most people are not doing good stuff. At least not godly stuff, not bad stuff, but not godly stuff. So that's not what it means at all. It means just that anything that's the antithesis of God, because of their understanding, because of their connection, um, that's the feeling will be there, right? Again, I think the simplest explanation and way we can appreciate this, if you really love your kids, then something that is going to harm them, you hate that. Now, I don't mean something that's good for them. Maybe it's challenging for them. Maybe it's, the kid needs to be put to the challenge. I'm talking about that. That's not what I mean. I'm talking about that, something that's, now, of course, everybody can go through whatever they go through and grow from it. Talking about that, if you really, then you would hate any kind of harm that would come to your loved one, right? You can't just love your kids. Okay. Now, this incomplete righteous person, there's degrees of them. So what does it mean it's incomplete? It means that the negativity that all of us have, because we all have an animal soul, but what they have done is subdued their animal soul to such a degree that it's like in kosher law, if you have milk and meat mixed together and you have 60 parts milk versus some, chicken soup that fell into the pot, right? So it's nullified. It's nullified. And in some halachic renditions, there's 1,000 to 1. It depends, truma and so on. In other words, there's different levels of what we call bittul, nullification, right? In nullification, but not transformation. So the incomplete, there's still an element that was not transformed. Mostly was transformed, but an element that was not transformed, right? And we have, again, many levels of that. Is that clear? We find in the Gemara, it says that there are 18,000 tzaddikim that stand before God. And they're incomplete. 18,000. By 18,000 means throughout the history. So, if you count 5,700 years, 18,000 is not going to be a huge amount at any given time, right? It's not a huge amount of tzaddikim that we're talking about over here. That is the incomplete ones. Complete tzaddik, on the other hand, Rav Shimon Bar Yochai makes a statement that they are called bnei aliyah, men of ascent, and they are but few. That is very few, right? They are ones who convert evil and make it ascend to holiness. As it says in the Zohar, Reb Chia wished to ascend to the heavenly shrine of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai. He wanted to ascend there. And he heard a voice come out and say, whichever of you before coming here have converted darkness into light, transformed bitter of the animal soul and the evil inclination to sweetness and holiness, those are the people that could enter. In other words, what is a person of ascent? Someone who's transformed darkness into light, bitterness into sweetness. Completely so. There's another term, B'nai Aliyah, which means men of ascent, that also means that they do it for the sake of above, for God. Now, listen to this. Listen to this. Most of us, we're here because we want to be here. We're here. Why? Why are we here? Because we want to connect to God. It's about us. We have a thirst, and that thirst leads us to connect to God. And that's what the prophet says. Oh, you're thirsty? Go to water. Well, obviously thirsty, go to God. What does it mean? In other words, through Torah study, you'll quench your thirst to cleave, to connect to Hashem, right? That's regular people. Men of ascent, these complete righteous people, they don't do it for their cleaving, their connection to God. They don't do it for that reason. They do it in order to unite the Shekhinah with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with the Holy One, blessed be He. In other words, they do it in order to create a union. They do it for the sake of God. And this is what we say on page 30 before Baruch Sha'amar every morning, right? We say, for the sake of the union of the Holy One, blessed be He, Kodesh Baruch Hu, and His Shekhinah, and His divine presence. That's the male and female parts of the divine, right? To create a union. Kodesh Baruch Hu, the Holy One, blessed be He, is the male, right? And the Shekhinah, the divine presence, is a female. To unite Yud-K and Vav-K, right? The tetragrammaton, in a perfect union in the name of all of Israel. So we say it, the righteous live it. The complete righteous, they live that. In other words, they do everything for the sake of above, B'nai Aliyah. They do this for the sake of God, not for their own thirst, not for their own needs to be met. Heavenly needs, divine needs, wonderful. So be it that everybody would be that way. But there are the few, right? That's what our Rebbe is, right? Excuse me, in every generation, that they're totally there only for the sake of God. And this is what our sages say. Who is a chassid? Who is a pious one? Someone who is benevolent to his nest, meaning the source of his life, meaning to God. In other words, they're benevolent to God. They're doing it for God, not for their own sake, to create that union above, to bring new light and life, right? This is in a manner that is brought down in the Zohar of a son who exerts himself for his father and mother, whom he loves more than he loves himself. And he'll sacrifice his life in order to redeem them from their captivity. So God is held captive down here in Klippa, the Shekhinah, the divine presence. And therefore, by doing a mitzvah, you are redeeming God in this world. So says the Alter Rebbe, this idea, B'nai Aliyah, men of ascent, the complete righteous individual, that means, men of ascent means, the first explanation was that they transform all evil into, all darkness into light, all bitterness into sweetness, all negativity of the animal soul, right, is completely transformed, right? That, in other words, they're ascending all that negativity to the divine. And the second explanation was that they're doing everything for the sake of the divine, not for their own sake, right? Not for their own sake. It says these two explanations are really come together as one, right? That they complement each other. In other words, by refining, right? By creating the union, so you're bringing a refinement of divine light, you're elevating all the negativity of this world, including, of course, yourself, whatever the negativity, has been transformed into light in the individual. And that would conclude chapter 10, the righteous. So may please, all the righteous, please stand up.
According to that definition.
Okay, let's see if we have any questions here. Now, if we're not righteous, so what does it leave us? So first of all, we need to know that there are such people, right? The Alter Rebbe, of course. Our Rebbe, of course. That are complete righteous individuals. How do you know that? Because you can only see their behavior. You don't know what's going on inside of them. You see it by it's ultimately you see it because of the miraculous ways of their living. And you see that they're not bound by the material world as we're bound by. They have a vision that we don't have. And that when they say something, it comes true. It comes true. That's how you know that they're a true leader, not just a righteous person. Actually, to go a step further, a Rebbe is even infinitely greater than a righteous person. Obviously, a Rebbe is righteous. That goes without saying. But a complete righteous does not mean you're a Rebbe. A Rebbe means you're an embodiment of all the entire Jewish people. That's very different. Righteous just means you, for yourself, are righteous, right? It does not mean that you have a connection to others as a Rebbe does, who's the head of the Jewish people. Just like the head conducts the body, the rest of the body, the limbs of the body and everything of the body. So likewise, a Rebbe is the conductor of the Jewish people, and therefore is connected with all souls, right? That's way beyond the righteous person. Way beyond. Right. Of course, he's righteous. That goes without saying. But there's so much more. Are Holocaust survivors and surviving hostages considered righteous? Yeah, the Rebbe did speak about, I don't know righteous would be the right word. I don't think the Rebbe would use the term that, and you know what, I'd have to double check. I don't want to misspeak. It's a good, excellent question. I don't want to misspeak on that. I think the term that Rebbe used about them was not righteous, but holy. Kedoshim. They were called Kedoshim, right? This place here is called Chabad, Zichrei Kedoshim, remembering the holy ones, right? Martyrs, another term would be for martyrs, right? So I don't think it means that they're, righteous as we're explaining over here. I don't think the Rebbe used the term that they were tzaddikim, but I might be wrong. So that's why I don't want to say. He for sure used the term kedoshim, holy ones, martyrs, right? That for sure. And that they were holy, no question about that, yeah. Are the 18 prayers related to the 18,000? That's a good question. Not that I know of. Not that I know of. Good question. Yeah, there's no question they received their Olam Haba and so on. Is Mashiach at the same level as men of ascent? Mashiach is more. than the men of ascent. Again, men of ascent means that they are righteous, completely righteous, but they're not an embodiment of all the souls, the Jewish people. That's our Rebbe, and that's Mashiach, was the embodiment, right? Just like Adam was the embodiment of all souls. But he, you know, Joseph, does righteous depend on scholarship? Well, definitely, it'd be very, very difficult to be righteous without great scholarship. It'd be definitely very, very difficult. I don't imagine it. Good question. Okay, any questions here?
The Rebbe or much person in every generation. Maybe. So now, is there someone like that today?
Our Rebbe is like that today. Are there other righteous people? For sure. For sure. Now, just I was on the phone yesterday with somebody, a friend, who was on Chabad, and he's saying that, his wife is in Israel and she's going around to all the Rebbes there to get blessings and so on. So that's a difference between Chabad and others. Others, they see a Rebbe or a righteous person a source of blessing for them, which they are, 100%. But that's not what our connection is about. We have a term called iskashrus, which means connection. Why? Why? Not merely to receive, but because we are connected. It's a very different notion. In other words, we're connected, and therefore, it's more about what we want as a result to give to the Rebbe, as opposed to take from him. We'll take for sure, because we're going to get blessings, we're going to ask for blessings, and we'll get blessings. No question about that. But what Chabad Chassid means is not shopping around for blessings from different holy people. Again, could you? Of course you could. But it's about a devotion to your Rebbe, and we emulate this idea over here of the righteous, the complete righteous, right? The men of ascent, that they do it for God. So Chassid does to give pleasure to his Rebbe, that he should have nachas, right? That is a strong notion, a strong motivation, right? Doesn't make us righteous, but that's I guess a lesson we could take out from what the righteous, that we're going to do it literally just for God. That's we need to have that awareness. That's true, but to do it for to give the Rebbe pleasure from what we do, like a child wanting to give pleasure to his parent, right? That's a good child, right? Usually children are about taking from their parent, and that's natural. That's natural. But the mature child who recognizes the goodness of their parents and want to give them pleasure, well, that's already the kind of child, right? Not different. So us, children of Hashem. So for Hasidim, the idea of doing something that will give divine satisfaction, yes, but how it's expressed as giving the nachas to the Rebbe. Okay. What was Eve the embodiment of? She was the mother of all. That's what she was, the mother of all. Adam, we're talking about the soul, not the, she was the mother of all. Okay. Amazing. All right, folks. Rambam coming up. Thank you.
Would King David be a complete tzaddik? All the prophets in the Tanakh?
Complete? No, not necessarily.
Not necessarily.